Bashir, would you agree with that? That it's actually your outlook on life that actually impacts how you work within these organizations as well?
Absolutely. I think there's no two ways about it. Your outlook toward life and how you what your objectives in life are. Obviously, when you're working for a financial institution, you have, you can be driven by bonuses, you can be driven by anything what you do, but as long as you can keep that balance in your life, it's very important. But I think coming back to your question, the financial institutions have a huge responsibility because the impact, whatever happens, is very wide. It's just not limited to a particular consumer.
When you're dealing with such large sums, then obviously the impact is going to be just as large.
So I think there has to be more moral responsibility, more responsibility of the financial institutions going forward. And certain areas or certain transactions which involve speculative trading, which doesn't have any economic underlying activity, has to be avoided going forward. And I'm sure they will learn lessons from their mistakes in the past now.
All right, let's move to the audience. Name if you got a point.
As probably the only layman in the audience, I am very confused from the offset in terms of the consequences of this. So I guess what will help me sort of understand this is, from the financial crisis, thinking now, thinking in the short term, thinking medium and long term, who are the winners and who are the losers? Because to me, I've found the losers. My government's one of the, as far as I can understand it, a big loser. Who are the winners and why?
Okay, that's a good point. I'd like to put that to the panel.
I think in the current environment, and if you look at the cyclical event, every 10 years something major happens. And at that period of time, this is the worst it's ever been. Now this is, as Bashir said and Rafiel Saab, unprecedented. There is no winners as such, I would say collectively, because if you look at all of the members of the game, as Rafiel Saab said, effectively, no one's really come out looking great. However, in crises, there is a reason, if you look spiritually for some reason, there's a reason this has happened. And it's to clear the decks, is to basically create awareness and for people to learn from this. So if you were to ask who are the winners should really be the individuals who have sufficient liquidity at the moment, who have not led a life of excessivity, and who have basically took a step back and think, you know what, thank God we were not stuck within this kind of environment, and something for them to teach their children going forward that this is what you should avoid. So if you were to say who are the winners, it's maybe the future generations that will be the winners.
Okay, but right now at this point, we talk about winners, but the losers are us, the general public. It's the taxpayers who are, forking out to actually pay up, we're bailing out the banks right now, aren't we? So you as the audience, we are taxpayers, we're going to be dealing with the problems. So how do you feel about that?
Well, obviously, don't feel very good about that, but my central point is, first thing, from what I'm a layman as well in this, so I'm only a scientist here. It seems to me from the discussion which is taking place that there are two reasons or two systems which cause this this financial crisis to happen. The first is the system itself. It seems the banking system is set up which facilitates this. And the other idea is sort of the moral aspect of it, as you mentioned. So the people working within that system are corrupt themselves. Obviously, for any proper system to work efficiently, you need both aspects, the workers and the system, to work properly. But essentially, my worry is that you said essentially that, Bashir Saab, the financial crisis is unprecedented. I don't think it is. There was the Great Depression. I think before the French Revolution, there was the first stock market crash. And
but the scale
essentially for the
right
same reasons.
Is much
so how can we, the scale for that time perhaps, for the wealth which existed was not perhaps that disproportionate. But my question is, how in the world can we say that this will never happen? Because it's been happening again and again, essentially for the same reasons as far as I understand. And you have the same systems in the end, and you have the same people in the end.
There's no guarantee whether this will happen again or not, obviously, because people and investors and everybody's got short memory, our memory is there, but after 5 years or 10 years, maybe the bank will start excessive lending. But the key is that regulators have to take responsibility then. They have to put checks and balances that this should not happen, at least in the foreseeable future. But coming back to your point, I think unprecedented because this was a banking crisis, The Great Depression was economic recession. The crisis which happened in the last 18 months was predominantly a banking crisis, which was unprecedented. The recession happened in the world. This is the first recession, so that was important. So I think that's what I wanted to highlight.
If you look at the growth of the world economy over leading up to this collapse as such, the collapse happened on the back of one or two institutions going bust. Now, that shows you how fragile the foundations were worldwide, regulatory-wise, because if one or two institutions can create that, then obviously in a governmental and a regulatory regime, things were not in place. The foundations were not built to manage this, because everyone was riding that wave of success, of growth, and even the consumer, even the individual taking the piece of success out of it. But now it's all fallen down. Everyone has to take a step back, and yes, you're right, systematically, the procedures need to be changed, that it should never happen again. So that's answering the gentleman's point at the back of who are the winners or who are the losers, in terms of it's whether people accept that change has to be done. The way they live, the way they spend, and the way they...
One more thing, you say, may sound a little ideological here, but in principle, you know, when you, everybody agrees that for the free market and for the economy we have now, liberal economy, to function, the main engine is human greed. And this is, you know, what actually everything is based on. Then, of course, everything will return to its circles and everything will repeat itself. Because this is the main thing, you know. If greed is the main engine, then greed will eat everything around it. Okay. You know, and the only thing not to repeat, or at least to have a chance to repeat this...
How do we stop ourselves from repeating
But then again, you know, people should understand that not the sheer egoistical greed is the engine, but also this thought about common good. Your own good, because it's part of common good. It's as easy and as simple as that. If you realize this, that if the common, you know, good is also in your business and not only somebody else's, then maybe you can create something for everyone. So are you saying we
should actually change the system?
It may change, ideologically, it may change the whole perception of economy and of society and everything. Just to know to say that, so for a moment, you can't ride only your greed. It's not, no.
Yeah, I think the little greed is always good, you know. A little greed is good, but excess is not acceptable. So I think we need to put in checks and balances. If I'm not in a position to borrow 10 times multiple of my salary, obviously I won't be able to borrow, you know. So these checks and balances have to be there. And I think that's a responsibility of the government collectively.
Okay, so you talked about checks and balances, and we've discussed earlier on about having the right morals as well. So what role do you think religion and actual spirituality can actually help us?
Well, it's just, you know, it's one thing of teaching and educating children. The second thing is enlightening them. It is a difference here. You know, educating, you can teach only practical skills. Enlightening, you can see how, you know, what he will do in life, or will he create, good or evil. So as simple as that. And in this respect, I think the enlightening of children and the younger generation is very important, and without religion it can't be achieved.
Okay, so what about other financial systems? What about, in Islam, there's actually a lot of talk right now about Islamic banking and Islamic finance. How do you think, would that actually have solved these issues?
See, I think this goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. You know, the model of Islamic finance, for example, you know, has now developed into such a global phenomenon in the last 10, 15 years, for example, where people have tried to get away from the fact, see, if you look at any interest-based economies as such, interest-based economies generally thrive on high risky lending at high extortionate rates. But in terms of on the Islamic model, which most of, I'm sure our panel are aware in terms of the funding aspects and the interest aspects, it's very much done that it's for the betterment of mankind. That there is an equality in the way that the money is lent, and there's an equality on how it's repaid. So not to create a burden, but to allow a person to have that basic lifestyle that he is allowed to have. But I'm sure Bashir and Rafil Saab can enlighten us more.
I mean, I want to touch on your background within Russia as well. That's a traditional communist state. How does it work there?
Sorry?
In terms of the finance in a communist state, how does it work there?
Well, everything was, you know, we had only one central bank, which was actually distributing distributing the money streams to certain, to the social care, to health care, and also to the sector of the industrial sector. But the problem here is that it was, of course, very ineffective, in fact.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, capitalism is the only thing which is much more effective than any other model. And in this respect, competition is essential, because when you compete, then you create some new value.
That's
here
the
in this
essence of a free
competition.
market, isn't it? Having that competition.